So I wanted to talk a little bit today about cultural appropriation. This is kind of a buzzword in social justice circles. The basic idea behind it, as far as I can tell, is that if you profit off of or benefit from some other culture's product, whether that's food or music or style of clothing or art, that you are appropriating that, and that this in turn harms that culture and the members of that culture and you benefit at their expense. So there was a tweet, and I will show that tweet from a woman who is criticizing another woman for writing a cookbook about noodles and dumplings despite being white. The idea being that if you're a white person, you're not allowed to profit off of noodles and dumplings because those are Asian dishes. Although some noodles are Italian, right? European. But in this case, these are Asian noodles, Asian dumplings, etc. The same sort of criticism could be leveled at somebody who, like a white person who owned an Asian restaurant. How dare they profit off of cooking Asian food for money when they're white? So this seems pretty wrong-headed to me because of a lot of reasons. For one thing, I think sharing between cultures is a net positive. I think this is how, cultures. It's sort of like the idea of genetic diversity, right? The reason that incest is frowned upon on a genetic level is that if you limit the gene pool so much that you're inbreeding, that there could be consequences, right? Birth defects, things like that, poor immune systems, and so you don't want to marry your sister or whatever. You want to have genes from some other pool so that they remain healthy and strong. Culture is like that, in my opinion. We want to tap into other cultures so that we can have a vibrant culture of our own. The United States itself is just one huge smorgasbord of different cultures, and that's one of the great things about it. We have a lot of different races. We have a lot of immigrants from different countries all across the world. A lot of different languages are spoken here. A lot of different you can find all kinds of different food, music, artwork, and it can all mix. And as it mixes, I'm not going to say it improves, but at least it changes. And you have variety. So you have one thing about food is most people like to have a variety of different dishes to choose from, and so having the ability to prepare and make food from lots of different cultures is a wonderful, wonderful thing. One thing that I thought of as I was reading about this is how similar these social justice types are when they're advocating against cultural appropriation to really hardcore nativists who who might argue this is whether here or the UK or wherever they might argue all these immigrants are coming here and they're ruining what our home. It should be a white. It should be white. It should be white European, whatever. And all these people from Pakistan and India and the Middle East and Korea and Japan. All these people coming over here are diluting the pureness of the land we live in. That's very similar to saying you can't cook tacos if you're a white person, or Chinese food. Or whatever. So to me, these are two sides of the same coin. It's creating racial purity or cultural purity guidelines that you have to adhere to, or else you're problematic. And I think that sounds pretty freaking racist, if you ask me. So the person who made this tweet protected their account and then complained that they were being harassed by a bunch of Nazis and started taking donations for therapy. Ignoring all the while that maybe tweeting and calling out the author of this cookbook, who I can only assume is a fairly non-controversial figure, might have brought similar type of harassment down on this woman's head from people who immediately think, oh, this is racist, this is cultural appropriation, yada, yada, yada. And that does happen. In my post at Diabolical about this, I wrote about two women who started a burrito truck in Portland, and they learned how to make their tortillas from tortilla ladies in Mexico. Got some tips from them, from a variety of different women down there. And when that came, there was an article in Mike.com about this, and they were yelped out of existence and forced to shut down, as though it somehow hurts these tortilla ladies in Mexico that a couple of women in Portland have a little burrito cart. I mean, explain to me where the harm is. Are people in Portland, were they going to go down to Puerto Nuevo, Mexico, and get those burritos instead? Probably not. In fact, I would imagine that if they ate those burritos, asked about, how'd you learn how to make these excellent tortillas, were told the story, well, maybe they would put that location on their travel itinerary in the future, and maybe those tortilla ladies down in Mexico might get a little extra business down the road. Not to mention that, in the food business, just like in music, just like anywhere, people are constantly stealing the ideas of others. It's just how it works. You hope that stealing doesn't include like actual stealing, like you go down to Mexico and you take the tortillas from the tortilla ladies. But copying, it's very common. We see in video games right now, the creators of Among Us are pissed off at Epic Games because they released this imposters mode that is a clone of Among Us. But Among Us itself is a clone of the party game Mafia, which you played, and it wasn't a video game, it was just a game you played in real life. Pretty much the exact same thing as Among Us. So even Among Us isn't original, it's a copy, and that's okay. And Epic Games copying this, that's okay. Epic Games also copied the success of PUBG and all these other earlier Battle Royale games, and then made Fortnite a Battle Royale game. But of course, those games also drew off of the movie Battle Royale, a Japanese movie about the same sort of concept, which itself isn't entirely unique. All of these things are built on earlier concepts, earlier ideas, and iterated on, changed, made new. So I guess I'll finish this off by saying that even while I am generally in favor of cultural appropriation, I think we have to be careful because I think there are certain examples where cultural appropriation actually lives up to its moniker, right? Now, I talked about this in my article as well, but the swastika, right? The swastika was a Sanskrit symbol that basically meant well-being, and this was this was in the early 20th century popularized all across the West. Coca-Cola used it in its advertising. The Boy Scouts, the Girls Club of America, they both used the swastika at one point or another. Authors like Rudyard Kipling used the swastika. It's from India, and Kipling wrote about India. And then Hitler used the swastika. Unlike everyone else using the swastika as a symbol of well-being or positivity or whatever, Hitler used it as a symbol of the Third Reich and Nazism and white supremacy. Modern-day white supremacists have basically stolen a bunch of Norse runes. So now if you're like me and you kind of look like a Viking and you want to get some cool Norse runes tattooed on you, you're going to have to be careful because the cops, white supremacists, they see those on you, they will identify you as a neo-Nazi or white supremacist. And so those are kind of ruined, at least as tattoos now. When something is taken from a culture and then ruined because of how it's used, that's cultural appropriation as far as I'm concerned. When something is taken from a culture and just used in a positive way, like for a restaurant or in a song or like a hairdo, that is just cultural sharing. And people do it all the time, and it's inevitable, and it's impossible to avoid, because if you're the type of person that's going to avoid all other cultures and separate yourself out into just this little box of your own culture, that's kind of racist. And if you're the kind of person telling people to do that under the guise of social justice, well, that's still kind of racist. So I'll share one last little story here. My friend owns a bookstore. He was telling me that his employees forced them to basically stop selling piñatas there. They sold these little miniature, like, gift piñatas, right? Because it was cultural appropriation of Mexican culture. So he did a little digging and discovered that actually the earliest piñatas were found when Marco Polo went to China, and they had piñatas there. They were colorful designs of different animals, and they'd hit them with sticks and seeds would fall out. And this is 700 years ago in China. Marco Polo brings that tradition back to Europe where it's absorbed into some Lent celebrations in Catholicism. Gets big in Spain. The dance of the piñata was a big thing in Spain, and of course that's carried over to the New World, where missionaries used it to reel in some indigenous people to their festivals and to Christianity. And since there was actually a similar deal with the Aztec culture using clay pots, this was a natural way to sort of woo the indigenous people, just like how missionaries would link indigenous gods to saints in the Catholic tradition. And so, it comes full circle. It comes from China to Europe to the New World, and now to this bookstore, and where they were purchasing these piñatas. They were made in China. So I just thought that's funny. Anyways, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and ring the little notification bell, and peace.